Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of Daredevil Born Again, Episode 9, the season finale titled Straight to Hell. Let's go through this finale episode scene by scene for all the details and Easter eggs you missed. And I got so much to talk about here, my jaw is gonna end up being looser than Gallows. And we have some amazing new Daredevil-themed merch designs on our merch store, nerdrite.shop, including this awesome Josie's shirt. And getting shirts like this are just the best way to support us here at New Rockstars. All right, we open this finale episode on Dex's eye in a sniper scope, bathed in the blue tint of his world. Directors Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson, who directed the post-creative overhaul reshot episodes of 1, 8, and 9, confirmed that the blue light was inspired by Bullseye's blue suit in the comics and part of a color scheme of blue for Bullseye, red for Daredevil, and white for Kingpin. We hear the same song that ended episode 8, Storm Clouds Rising, Let's Go Home. So we are back in that moment Dex fired upon Mayor Fisk and hit Matt Murdock when Matt leapt in front of the bullet. The focus shifts from the crosshairs of the scope, which is Bullseye's logo in the comics, to Dex's eye as we hear him exhale before the trigger clicks in and he fires. Exhaling, of course, is what trained marksmen do to ensure that their breathing doesn't accidentally affect their aim at the last millisecond. Seeing Dex's eye framed this way is also how Benson and Moorhead framed him back in episode 1 of the season when he was targeting Foggy Nelson outside Josie's. And the circumstances of that targeted hit are where we flash back to on this interesting edit showing a painting of a deer as if this were the prey Bullseye was targeting. Really, at this point in his life, anytime he would see this, he's probably like, damn, I wish I was out there shooting stuff. We are now 1 year prior, though not exactly 1 year, technically, because the prologue of episode 1 that showed us the night of Foggy's death flashed forward 1 year from that, which would have been to the autumn of 2026 before Wilson Fisk would have won the mayoral race. That would have been in November 2026, and that would have led to New Year's Eve going into 2027 in episode 2, and then to March 2027 when the St. Patrick's Day events of that episode 5 took place, and we know it was 2027 because St. Patrick's Day was on a Wednesday of that year, and then to April 2027 when the mayor's ball and Dex's latest shooting took place. So really the most accurate text would be 18 months ago, but since writer Dario Scardapani and director Benson and Moorhead really focused their restructuring efforts on episodes 1, 8, and 9 together, I really can't blame them for getting some of the timeline precision a bit off, though we should note later in this episode Karen does say that Foggy's Dumb Benny file was from, quote, a year and a half ago, so they got it correct there. Ben Poindexter is in a mental institution sometime following his surgery that we saw in the Daredevil season 3 post-credit scene, where he was given a new cognium spine, a detail that this season did not address at all. Vanessa Fisk, wearing Kingpin white as white light glares through the windows, tells Dex this.
The whole FBI corruption scandal agent Nadeem all that. It's why my husband was acquitted. It's only fair it should benefit you too.
She's referring to the events of Daredevil Season 3, where we met Agent Ray Nadeem, the FBI agent Matt worked with, the agent Vanessa told Dex to kill, which was the move that implicated Vanessa in the conspiracy to make Fisk fear an M&P coming after her. During this period, many of the other FBI agents were too afraid of Wilson Fisk during his house arrest and ended up doing Fisk's bidding. So it sounds like Fisk's lawyers argued that the corruption started with these FBI agents, not with Fisk, or because those agents allowed themselves to be flipped, the whole terms of the FBI custody were just shady and the whole case stunk, which I guess got Fisk acquitted. And that's crazy. Not just the case dismissed or the charges dropped, acquitted. Damn, that means Fisk had some really good lawyers or made some judges and jury members very afraid of him. Vanessa presents Dex with this release paperwork, which he looks at through blurred vision due to some heavy meds. This is an order for conditional release pending appeal. On April something, Benjamin Leonard Poindexter, the defendant, was convicted by a jury of 9 counts of something, attempted murder in the first degree and murder in the second degree. And we see the word revoked. Dex is being released pending an appeal. Vanessa must have a lot of pull to have gotten this kind of deal for a violent offender. Dex asks if Fisk knows about this, and Vanessa says that she hasn't seen Fisk in a while. So we are in that unclear point in the timeline after Fisk had been shot by Maya Lopez and is recovering from the wound. Vanessa tells Dex to kill Benjamin Cafaro, aka Dumb Benny, and Foggy Nelson, because she says the case will expose her illegal business practices with the 5 families. Now, technically, Vanessa wouldn't need to do this if Foggy had stayed true to the terms of the deal Matt made with Fisk at the end of season 3 to never pursue Vanessa Fisk legally, and this is assuming Vanessa knew the terms of that deal, she was in the room when it was made, and that Foggy knew that Dumb Benny's testimony would implicate Vanessa Fisk. Maybe Foggy just thought Dumb Benny's testimony would hurt Devlin, Victor, Luca, the 5 families, and Foggy didn't know that Vanessa Fisk was their boss, but it seems like Vanessa assumed one of those guys would flip on her, so Foggy and Dumb Benny had to go. When the nurse brings Dex's pills, Vanessa just is like, nope, because she wants his senses to sharpen. She says Dex's past with Fisk isn't a part of this, but even he cannot seem to let go of Fisk breaking his back back in season 3 in this inebriated state, which makes me wonder, was Vanessa okay with the possibility of Dex going rogue and killing her husband? Did she think that Fisk was gone forever at this moment and Dex would have never had a chance to get close to him? I also just appreciate the detail that the only writing implement in this room is a dull marker, no sharp pens or pencils, and keeping Dex this heavily medicated would make sure he would not be able to turn even this marker into a weapon. Dex sees the release paperwork turn blue and we cut back to the present at the ball. Dex's scope is actually trained on Vanessa at first, which I was relieved to see, because last week I thought it would make a lot more sense for Dex, after being transferred from ESH to Gen Pop at Rikers, would assume both Vanessa and Fisk were to blame for that, and Dex probably would have wanted to make Fisk suffer by seeing Vanessa die moments before he got popped too. But I suppose his longer held hatred for Fisk takes over in this moment, so his scope swings over to the white whale, and rather than take multiple shots, it seems Dex is so shocked to see Matt Murdock take that bullet. And maybe Dex in this moment is realizing that for sure Matt must be Daredevil, if he didn't already know. It's never really been clear when exactly he found out or if he ever did. Matt wakes up in a hospital. Heather is still wearing the bloodstained dress. In the next scene, Fisk and Vanessa are still in their same clothes. So it's only been like a couple hours since the shooting, but Matt has miraculously recovered. It was a shoulder shot, and our man has recovered from a lot worse, a lot faster. Actually, in season 1 of the Netflix run, they do justify Matt's very fast healing ability by saying that Stick taught him to meditate to heal faster than an average person can. Although here, it seems like he was just unconscious, so I don't know if he can unconsciously meditate. I mean, he's just Matt Murdock. He can do anything. While Matt normally has insane spatial awareness, he must be under some pretty heavy drugs, because when Heather takes his hand, he peels a real Ron Weasley here.
Karen?
It's the drugs.
Now, we all know that Matthew Murdock is a bit of a boy, and it's why we love him. But you know, Karen Page is in the process of returning from San Francisco to New York in this episode, so Matt's senses might just be so good that he's hearing or smelling Karen landing at the airport several miles away. Wait, shh. Karen, JFK, Terminal 2, Gate 27A, by the Sbarros. During the scene, we intercut with Fisk and Vanessa, and he indicates he already knew what Vanessa was about to tell him at the ball. He knew that she sent Bullseye after Foggy Nelson to hide her Red Hook dealings. Now, when did Fisk learn this? I assume sometime after Foggy died, and that, along with running for mayor, might have been what brought him back to New York. He promises Vanessa that they now can move billions out of Red Hook, since he's using it as an unregulated free port. Fisk's clothes are covered in Matt Murdock's blood, again recreating the image of the rabbit in the snowstorm painting. Matt's blood brings Fisk and Vanessa together to form the colors of their favorite blood-spattered painting. Finally, no more secrets between them, while we intercut with a scene where Matt has to frantically explain to Kirsten and Heather all this information while leaving out the key piece of information about himself. While Fisk is mostly calm with Vanessa, when he's in a room with his advisors and Gallo and some of the goons, he turns on a performative rage, demanding cops no longer have body cameras, no due process, no warrants.
I want the bridges shut down! I want the tunnels closed!
And that pound on the desk causes Gallo to flinch, as some part of him is already fearing the physical power of Wilson Fisk. Fisk and Buck talk about Matt Murdock's condition.
Murdock saving you does complicate the optics of things somewhat.
Based on this, we have to assume that Wilson Fisk told Buck Cashman that Matt Murdock is Daredevil, because, you know, if a lawyer were to save Mayor Fisk, no issue there. But as someone they were about to out as a vigilante was that savior, that's the optics issue that Buck is talking about here. So Fisk orders Buck to kill Matt as Matt recovers in the hospital.
A dead hero is better than a live vigilante.
Basically, kill him so that he dies as just a normal lawyer before anyone can find out who and what he really is. Fisk tells Sheila that the city's at a tipping point where the people just need a push to do the right thing, as he sees it.
And what would that push be?
The way Sheila is holding her phone, casually lifting her hand off and back over the camera, could be her recording this conversation, which we know she does with Gallo. So she might just be covering her ass and recording everything everyone says, probably starting with the moment Mayor Fisk says, "No more body cams." Buck walks up to Matt's hospital room with a get well soon gift, and we are now feeling the paranoia Michael Corleone felt in The Godfather, as rival mobsters walked into Don Corleone's hospital to try to finish him off. Over the hospital speakers, the music is an elevator music version of Roberta Flack's Killing Me Softly, as Buck plans to do by using a poison syringe and not a very loud gun like he must prefer. In Daredevil Season 3, Fisk had a prison nurse try to inject Matt Murdock with a similar type of needle, and Matt springing into action is how Fisk realized Matt was Daredevil. Buck watches his clock tick down to the exact moment of a city-wide blackout. That's why Fisk wanted to meet with a guy from the city's power department. Presumably, Buck thought the cover of darkness would be the best time to stick Matt, as a hospital would enter a state of panic and Matt would be overwhelmed with the sudden shouts all over the building to react fast enough, but it doesn't work. Matt already heard his evil steps before the blackout. As Roberta Flack's actual version of Killing Me Softly now fills our ears, we see wide shots of the New York City blocks going dark. Unaffected is Jersey City, west of the river, because that's in New Jersey and not under Fisk's jurisdiction. So the Khan family dinner undisturbed. Beyond the darkened buildings, we see a sky filled with stars, the likes of which no one in Manhattan has likely ever seen. And I love this choice this episode, not just to indicate the sudden lack of light pollution, but to show how New York City, for the first time in a while in the MCU, has heightened to a more fantastical setting, with this crazed despotic ruler making the location closer to the kind of cosmic reality the rest of the MCU is in. It makes Fisk's New York City feel like it could be a part of Battleworld in Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. Matt re-enters his apartment in his bleeding hospital gown and smiles and shakes his head upon re-entry, immediately sensing Fank. I love the music sting they score this moment with.
You're pretty much the last person I expected to find here. You know you're a wall-to-wall asshole.
Fank says he found nothing in his kitchen to make a pot of coffee with, and come on. These writers have to know what coffee on Luke Cage and other Defenders shows was really code for. If you really want to look into this, look no further than Matt complimenting Frank's new haircut.
After shaving a haircut, that all for me?
And the scene definitely ends with Fank checking out Matt's bare butt.
I'm gonna do it with your ass hanging out.
But really, the haircut line is probably just a meta line to explain Jon Bernthal's hair changing from episode 4 to now. Maybe they had to do the reshoots around other things that Jon Bernthal was shooting. He is in Christopher Nolan's Odyssey, like everyone in Hollywood will be. But Fank probably also did it because he got a special phone call from someone he wanted to impress.
Got a phone call, changed my mind. Care to be more specific? I do not.
Yeah, we realized later that phone call came from Karen. And there's just something so badass about Fank begrudgingly promising to save Red's life as he angrily stalks around the windows glaring at the police searchlights like King Kong. As the squad moves in on Matt's door, Cole North waves off the guy with the battering ram, thinking they can get the jump on Matt Murdock if they enter his apartment quietly, but that's a mistake because Matt is waiting for the goons to enter his living room, smashing down through the skylight. And Matt needed to start this fight from the outside, A, because his suit and masks are in a locker on the roof of this building, and B, because these goons needed to think that Daredevil arrived to this apartment from somewhere else to save a separate person, the lawyer Matt Murdock. Now, it's not clear if Buck Cashman already told them who Matt was. If so, I think they would have entered this building with a bit more caution and would have been suspicious that the door was unlocked. Fank, meanwhile, waits on the balcony and fires his shotgun through the door. I feel a little bad for the guy with the dreads because they clearly just cast him for this part for the effect of his hair billowing forward in slow motion to sell the shotgun blast. While Fank makes good on his promise to shred these fanboys to pieces using those violent, lethal attacks possible, all of Matt's hits, while brutal, are the non-lethal variety. One of Frank's moves includes throwing one guy's head into a table and smashing out the dude's teeth. Obviously, we can't show this, but it's kind of like a hand version of curb stomping. And because that's not lethal enough, he holds the guy down against the bench and shoots him repeatedly through it. Cole North aims from around a corner and gets one shot that grazes Frank's chest, but that just pisses him off further. He growls like a bear and shoots Cole's wrist. Matt grapples with this dude's rifle, kicks out the guy's knee, and then uses his billy club cable to take out another guy behind him, and then retracts it to knock out the guy closer to him. Fank runs over to Cole North's wall and shoots through it, thinking he's hitting Cole North, who was just there, but hitting another guy. And then Fank dives across to the kitchen island, and the fight crescendos into a violent duel at this point. We hear the pings of Matt's billy club hitting skulls and delivering KOs, and the harmonic growls, and the gunshots, and the super bloody slashes of Frank's deadly strikes. It's like the tomato duet. And the bloodiest of these is the one by the sink that severs the jugular, which gives Fank a breath to look over in Matt's direction as he does this sexy acrobatic flip, definitely to impress Fank with that ass, past Cole North. And it's important that Cole North starts shooting at him here because it releases one of the casings that they find later, and Fank uses the same knife to pin Cole's hand against a wall. And then the fight ends with this awesome moment of Fank and Matt each saving each other. Matt billy clubs the guy behind Fank, while Fank shoots the goon behind Cole who had the drop on Matt. They save each other, as all lovers do. But having Cole be the one to fire the shot that grazed Fank is crucial for this next moment, because only Fank would be unhinged enough to track the exact bullet casing of the one shot that hit him, and remember where it was on the ground for him to locate it now among what must be dozens of other casings on the floor.
Hey, we found your guy.
Confirmed. confirmed it was Cole North who shot Hector Ayala. Cole was the one who marked his bullet casings with Punisher skulls. Matt whacks Cole so hard he even loses his footing a bit, and then after remembering hugging Hector after his not guilty verdict, starts to step forward again in the direction of Frank in the background, but stops himself. And now Matt remembers his last night with Foggy and with Karen and pushing Dex off the building, and he stops Frank from putting Cole down.
No, Frank, no.
He's not worth it, Frank.
How about him? He worth it?
Damn! What an impulsive way to make a point that each of these goons is as bad of an apple as the next. Now, who knows where this argument would have escalated to if not for a grenade dropping in. And that is wild, by the way. Whichever goon released this grenade would have no way of knowing which of their other goons might still be alive, and just doomed everyone on this floor to die while endangering who knows how many other civilians in neighboring apartments and floors of this building. Maybe I shouldn't be surprised given the makeup of Fisk's goons, but they clearly have no problem turning a civilian block in New York into an explosive war zone. Matt and Frank jump off the balcony, and Matt whips his billy club to try to control their landing, swinging to the car below. But we stay in this fun, kind of long take inside the car that they land on with the roof denting, and we see a double explosion up on the apartment building. We see a pair of shoes dangling from the power line, swaying from the shockwave. And I know these shoes were probably already up there, thrown by some bully that Matt Murdock's gonna get around to beating the shit out of at some point. But the way the explosion is edited, it kind of looks like Cole North got his goddamn boots blown off his feet like a Looney Tunes character, and they ended up flinging onto this line. I know that's not what happened, but it is what happened in my mind. A car pulls up, and we hear John Pisano's Netflix era theme, and there she is.
Come on, get in.
Shotgun.
I love that Matt stares at Frank, even though Matt is blind. He just wants Frank to feel uncomfortable and to have Matt staring at him from the devil eyes of the mask. I also love that Matt calls shotgun being Frank's weapon of choice, though we missed out on these two probably recreating Sam and Bucky's moment from Civil War.
Can you move your seat up?
No.
Back at Frank's bunker, Frank sews up his own wound while Karen patches up Matt, and then she checks in on Frank.
Nothing in this world a good cup of coffee can't fix. You want a cup?
The coffee metaphor returns. I mean, Deborah Ann Wool even said that cup of coffee became so synonymous with sex in the earlier seasons that after Luke Cage had a whole scene about the real meaning of it, in Daredevil season 3, they were no longer allowed to have characters share coffee. So I'm choosing to believe that Frank was offering both Karen and Matt coffee, and it means more than we think. Daredevil Born Again has all the grit and grime we wanted from our return to Hell's Kitchen. It's a show that smells like asphalt and metal. So we went ahead and engraved its logo onto one of our favorite rings from Gentle Bands. Gentle Bands has been making rings since 2017 using unconventional materials like retired spacecraft titanium, antler, meteorite, whiskey barrels, glowstone, and dinosaur fossils. When Gentle Bands asked us what ring we were interested in this month, we chose the Cardinal because it has two sides, just like Matt Murdock. On the outside, brushed tungsten, the metal equivalent of a lawyer in a suit. On the inside, red aluminum for Daredevil, the alter ego Matt can never fully escape. And because Gentle Bands is currently offering free engraving on all orders, we decided to customize ours with a Daredevil logo. Gentle Bands also offers a free sizing service if you don't know what size to get when you make your purchase, and free lifetime replacement if your ring is lost, broken, or no longer fits. Click the link in the description to check out the Cardinal and a wide variety of other rings on gentlebands.com. Use code NEWROCKSTARS to get a special 25% discount on your new favorite ring today. One teenage looter tries to steal a drill, but he's shot dead by this shitty cop task force Bert, who pulls the guy's beanie down over his eyes to call him a masked vigilante. And this guy kind of looks like Matt's original homemade mask back in season 1. Matt and Karen look through Foggy's old NMMP files, and they find Foggy's box with a name plaque reading Avocados at Law, which is an old bit from college when drunk Foggy misheard the Spanish word for lawyer, abogado, as avocados. This came from Daredevil season 1, episode 10.
How do you say lawyers in Spanish?
Avocados.
El grande avocados.
Karen finds Foggy's file on Dumb Benny and a photocopied charter of the port of Red Hook from 1855, declaring Red Hook as a legal free port, exempt from taxation. Now, in our world, Red Hook in Brooklyn is not a free port. Free ports, or FTZs, foreign trade zones, tend to be located around airports and other ports of entry, like the Oslo Airport Terminal and Tenet, and in the United States, these are federally designated zones. But, you know, it's just another example of the MCU's history just unfolding differently than ours. Maybe in 1855, it was like an immigration or a Gangs of New York issue II, or the country was rapidly headed toward the Civil War. They just let all kinds of stupid shit like this pass. Or baby Tiamat in the core of the earth burped and a tidal wave wiped out some coffee shipments, and the New York legislature was like, we need a free port in Brooklyn to avoid tariffs on the next shipment of coffee. But in our history, 1855 was the year that Bushwick, Greenpoint, and Williamsburg became incorporated into Brooklyn, so maybe that's why they chose the year. Matt realizes that Mayor Fisk's new complex will allow him to do anything in Red Hook with complete legal immunity.
This is about the Fisks building their own city-state.
So here's where we could start getting really crazy and speculate that if Marvel Studios intends on taking pieces of this series and merging them with their plans for Battleworld and Avengers Doomsday, thinking of New York City as a heightened rogue state ruled over by a warlord, Kingpin, does make it an appropriate war zone as a part of Battleworld. Like, think about it this way, New York could totally descend into a Madripoor-like setting in the MCU, and I am here for it. Frank listens on the Goon Squad radio he took from Cole North that they're all gonna rendezvous back in Red Hook, so Frank heads there and stabs this dude in the neck. I love the crazy lighting effect where the blood is so thick, the exterior light gets filtered completely in red. It's kind of like Punisher is recreating the city painted with blood effect of the Daredevil earlier era intro sequence. I love this shot of Frank slowly walking up the ramp into the warehouse, the dull white of his skull sigil fading in from the darkness, like death coming for these men, the horrifying sight these goons must feel as they watch him approach. Frank makes mincemeat out of a lot of these goons. He stabs one dude in the dick and then axes another guy in the head, and they seem to be using a specific visual effect in this episode to show a super red thick spray of blood on a lot of these hits. And while it might not be totally realistic for blood to be that brightly red and that copious on every slash in this dark of lighting, it does have a cinematic impact of drenching this finale episode in a lot of red, which I appreciate. Sheila sells out Gallo by giving Fisk the phone recording of Gallo's plans to go to Albany, and Gallo realizes he's in trouble when his normal driver is replaced by Officer Luke, someone who's got a fresh ink skull tattoo, and Gallo puts two and two together. I like how Gallo looks up at the sky out the window like, man, it'd be nice if one of these vigilantes swooped down and saved me here. Above Fisk's Red Hook complex, there's a particularly wide shot of the starry night sky. That cloudy band across the sky is our view of the Milky Way from Earth, the band being the central disk of our galaxy seen from the edge on. With Frank zip-tied down, Powell tries to recruit him with flattery.
It'd be an honor to serve with you, Frank.
Frank responds that they're clowns.
Think you know my pain? Think you know my loss?
Now, you have to wonder if in this moment things might have slowed down enough for Frank to see his son's ghost popping up in the corner of this room and saying, "Get him, Daddy!" This scene intercuts with Gallo being brought into a totally Dexter-style tarped killing floor, surrounded by goons whom Fisk was just doing a basketball coach-style huddle with moments before. Gallo makes this critical mistake.
You never stop being Kingpin. You can't.
It's like Gallo gives Fisk permission to revert to his most brutal form and not do it in private, but do it for an audience. Notice also in this scene, Fisk no longer wears a patriotic American flag lapel pin, just a golden Apple lapel pin. It's kind of like he's no longer serving American constitutional values, but rather just local New Yorker values, ruling by his own declared law. The intercutting here also creates some fun setups and punchlines between Castle and Fisk.
You know how I see the world?
Fisk grabs Gallo's head, and you can hear a little cracking as he squeezes it between his big ol' hands. And then Fisk kills him in what might be the most disgusting death the MCU has ever shown us. It's so bad, we definitely cannot show it here on YouTube, but basically, he rips his face in half, cracking the jaw and shredding the facial skin one way while ripping Gallo's flesh on his head the other way. Essentially, it's a very pulpy and sloppy version of the same maneuver the Scarlet Witch did on Professor X in Multiverse of Madness, and we can show that. At first, we all thought she was just snapping his neck, but no. Based on her grip, she was definitely ripping his face, and that's exactly what we see Mayor Fisk do to the police commissioner here. They accomplished this practical effect by creating an eerily accurate prosthetic head and bust of actor Michael Gaston. You can actually see the jagged line on which his fake cheek flesh would tear and release that bloody pulp. It's so cool, and this is why you always go practical. And I just like to imagine Michael Gaston to form the mold of this, having to go, "Oh!" And the way the other goons react, they're like, this is a demonstration. Teacher wants us to do this to everyone, and they are not digging it. Matt and Karen scope out Fisk's complex, and Karen warns him that he cannot beat Fisk's army alone.
You have to be smart. I am right there with you, okay? I feel lost, I feel angry, I feel helpless. The whole city is there.
No matter what threats Matt tries to focus his senses on, his hearing will always be most finely tuned to the suffering of the civilians in his home city. Karen asks Matt to remember a time that she had asked him what it was like living in the darkness, and he recalls his response.
It's not dark. It's like 1,000 suns.
Now, we never saw any scene in the first 3 seasons where Matt and Karen had that conversation, but it does somewhat recall Matt telling Claire Temple in the first season what his mind perceived when he sensed the world, a world on fire, which that episode showed us in the form of a fiery painting, not too dissimilar from the Ben Affleck Daredevil's echolocation vision of raindrops on Jennifer Garner's face. I do think some viewers misinterpreted that world on fire moment to think this is what Matt or like any blind person would see, but the truth is blind people don't see this. They don't see the color black. It's just nothing. And that nothingness is hard for people who can see to imagine. So really that fiery painting is really what is in Matt's mind, not what's literally projecting through his optic nerve. But a world on fire and 1,000 suns are essentially the same concept, like an endless field of fiery bursts. But to describe it to Karen as 1,000 suns feels like a less disastrous way to spin it. Like a sky filled with stars, like the light pollution-free night sky that they're both under in this moment. Meanwhile, a world on fire was a better description for someone like Claire Temple, who is a nurse who would see the world as like a never-ending emergency. And I'm really sorry to keep dragging this back to doomsday, but a world on fire would frame the greatest threat on the city's horizon to be a devastating incursion, but 1,000 suns would suggest that those incursions don't have to be solely world-ending, but rather the beginning of countless universes coming together and sharing their best with us to expand this world. And seeing so many stars and part of the Milky Way galaxy over New York City just feels like that is more possible now. Matt promises,
I'm gonna take this city back, Karen.
Where do we start?
We need an army.
So we see this day to night transition of Midtown Manhattan seen from Brooklyn, and we cannot see Avengers Tower. That tower would be closer to the Empire State Building, somewhere on the left half of screen. However, on the right half of screen, you can see one Vanderbilt, the Chrysler Building, and then the tall one on the right is 270 Park Avenue, aka the JP Morgan Chase Building. But what do we see here? Some major construction and scaffolding and cranes? Isn't the Watchtower under construction as it's extended over the existing structure of Avengers Tower when we see it in Thunderbolt's trailer footage? Well, I hate to disappoint you, but 270 Park Avenue was also under construction for the past several years, specifically in 2023 and 2024 when they were shooting this season, and the outside facade work was only just completed in late 2024. So that's really all we're seeing in this shot. But I do like the detail that when the city lights up with the power grid turned back on, the Empire State Building lights up to be Daredevil Red, which is what I'm gonna call it. I don't know, maybe they're calling Spider-Man, but it's Daredevil Red, assuming someone at the building is begging Daredevil to save them from Mayor Fisk and his goon squad. Mayor Fisk asks Heather Glenn to be his commissioner of mental health, and she accepts as a camera flashes on their handshake, meaning this moment was actually staged as a press moment as we see the battle lines being drawn. Fisk rushes into a televised address, and I love the detail where Daniel rushes a freshly printed speech in front of the mayor, and Sheila tries to weigh in, but Daniel shoves her out of the way so that she can't have a chance to review the speech before Fisk goes live. I'm sure Sheila also would have told him to sit down for the shot, but Fisk continues to stand behind the desk like a weirdo, causing him to tower over the camera and bear down over the TV audience, which, you know, he probably prefers. Fisk says that part of his Safer Streets initiative, all vigilantism is illegal, curfew is set for 8 p.m., and martial law is now in place for New York City. Curfew of 8 p.m.? It's April! Daylight savings would have just started, you cruel man! Now, mayors do not normally declare martial law. Governors and presidents do, and even then, it's legally disputed whether they really can outside of movie and TV worlds. But Wilson Fisk, like many of our leaders, are apparently just okay declaring whatever, regardless of what the law is. Normally, it's the Army or National Guard that would enforce martial law. Here, it is the Goon Squad. Fisk ends his speech with,
I love New York.
that awkward smile he tries to make, so perfect. And just closing the punctuated phrase of, I love New York, also reminds me of the opening words of The Godfather.
I believe in America.
Matt recalls his childhood at the St. Agnes Orphanage.
After the accident, I thought God had taken my sight. When I grew up, came to believe that in exchange, given me a special destiny.
Young Matt here is played by Eli D. Goss in this shot, recast from Skylar Garner, who played young Matt in the first 3 seasons before going on to play Jonah in Ozark. Skylar is a lot older now. It seemed like this young kid, Eli, shot a lot of scenes for the series, I assume for the other pre-overhaul version, but the scenes ended up getting removed from the final version. Maybe they kept in this shot just so this kid would have something to show for his work. We see stained glass art in the window above young Matt, one side showing a devil figure, one side showing an angel figure. Matt is on the side of the angels, but both good and evil are are framing the lens through which this blind boy faces out upon the world. In Josie's bar, Matt tells Karen that it wasn't the mask, it was Matt believing in the mask, and that for years he thought he was immune to the darkness, but he let the darkness creep in. And when Foggy died, he no longer knew who he was. Karen responds,
Foggy, I believed in you.
She reminds him that Foggy knew Matt fully, all parts of him, including the wrath and the mercy, the good and the bad, and that belief lives on. We hear the music of Radiohead's Everything in Its Right Place. This track has been used in a ton of movies and TV shows, the opening scene of Vanilla Sky, Gareth Edwards' The Creator, the ending of Westworld Season 3, the ending of For All Mankind Season 3, The Accountant, Peaky Blinders, etc., etc. It's used here to suggest that Matt is now in his right place as Daredevil, fighting for the soul of the city, and Kingpin is in his right place as an outwardly thuggish tyrant. This moment between Matt and Karen is being held in the back billiard room of Josie's bar, where Matt fought Bullseye in the prologue sequence. Now the sliding doors open to the members of Matt's growing army, and, well, we all gotta start somewhere. Angie Kim, Cherry, a few good apple cops we don't really know. Sure, I was hoping for a Jessica Jones, or a Luke Cage, or Kamala Khan. That would have been fun to see them in Josie's bar, but I guess that's gonna have to wait for season 2. Meanwhile, Fisk and Vanessa walk through the first level of their Red Hook compound, where Fisk's useful enemies are being held in freaking cages. Jack Duquesne, Arthur Sledge, whoa! And each cage is lit up like these captives are collections on display. Like, who is this? Collector Tanalir Tavan? I'm sure the art display of it all was Vanessa's suggestion, as she is the avid art collector of the two. Presumably, he's keeping these 1%ers alive to keep them transferring as needed funds from their coffers to Fisk's Red Hook expenses. And I gotta admit, there's something a little satisfying about hearing Tom York sing "In Its Right Place" over a shot of a billionaire in a cage. But not all captives are wealthy. Included here is Frank Castle, who has been additionally chained up in the cage because he's a wild animal who actually needs to be in a cage. This episode is titled Straight to Hell, and that's kind of where Fisk and Vanessa walk, further down to their lair where they had kept Adam, dining together in front of Rabbit in a snowstorm, cheersing with some celebratory champagne. A montage shows us Buck Cashman with his gun, Daniel sitting at what I think is Mayor Fisk's desk looking like he's ready to step into that office himself, Sheila regretting her choices, BB Urick probably also regretting her choices, as we hear Matt say, "But this is our city." And one of the New Yorkers we see in the montage is Radio Man, aka Craig Castaldo, a staple in New York City, known to every production that shoots there. He's known for wearing a radio around his neck and just always somehow knowing where and when everything is shooting in the city. So it's kind of a tradition for New York-based productions to give him a cameo. Like he showed up in 2014's The Amazing Spider-Man 2, you saw him in 30 Rock as Moonvest, and he's just been in like over 300 titles. We also see the younger task force cop who reacted to Officer Burt shooting that teenage looter. Now the cop in his credits is named Task Force Saunders, and I wonder if he could be related to the Officer Saunders, the cop who died in the Battle of New York in the 2012 Avengers film. Maybe it's his son. We see Angela Del Toro, who looks over her shoulder at some task force cops, one of whom hypocritically wears a mask. The book that Heather puts on her shelf is her own Live Without Fear book that she hawked at the bookstore. Kirsten McDuffie reads the Red Hook Port Charter and motion that Foggy was gonna file, hopefully unwinding that bullshit legalese. And we see Dex adjusting a tilted frame and looks back through a broken pane of glass. And fixing a tilted frame is a callback to Dex in Daredevil Season 3, something that he would do on his way out the door. It's just part of his obsessive nature. You know that he saw this uneven frame in a blue light and fixated on it with rage until he was able to fix it. This episode kind of never followed up with Dex after the assassination attempt. If we're accurate in interpreting Dex's reaction as realizing that Matt Murdock is Daredevil, maybe now he's rethinking his attacks on Daredevil from Season 3 and he's trying to build a new home where he might be able to help Daredevil liberate the city. I've seen some set photos that I can't really show here, but Bullseye will return in Season 2, and I think we're going to be very happy with how he looks. Matt's VO calls them a city without fear, a play on Daredevil's moniker of the man without fear, and this final shot frames Daredevil in the window of Josie's covered with newspapers that we've seen this season. Among the headlines are Fisk and his mayoral task force take to the streets, masked serial killer muse on a killing spree, Wilson Fisk campaign gains momentum heading into polls, the return of the Devil of Hell's Kitchen, and they missed an apostrophe on Hell's, vigilante activity on the rise, whispered of mass vigilantes taking matters into their own hands have emerged, and crypto craze continues amid regulation debates. And a red light flashes on Matt in this Daredevil suit, recalling the red light that washed over Matt as he glared up at Fisk in the final shot of the first episode of the season. Matt hoped to protect the city without having to don the mask, and now he's been born again as a Daredevil he would have to be to win that war. And we get a post-credit scene. From his cage, Frank gets to know his goon guard, Anthony Petruccio, from Jersey, and offers to shake his hand, knowing from Powell before that many of these goons look up to Frank Castle.
It's an honor to meet you. Thank you, Anthony.
You cannot keep the Punisher caged. He'll always get out. I'm assuming this guy is going to be in season 2, hunting each of the goons on the task force. Now, a reminder that Frank Castle Punisher is confirmed to get his own special presentation on Disney+. My hope is that in this hour-long special presentation, assuming it's that long, we see Frank assembling Daredevil's army for him so that they're already there at the start of Daredevil Born Again season 2. And hopefully we'll see, joined to that amazing all-star lineup in Josie's bar, Daredevil, Punisher, Karen Page, Foggy's Ghost, Frank Castle Jr.'s Ghost, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Echo, Kamala Khan, Kate Bishop, Lucky the Pizza Dog, Swordsman, Angela Del Toro White Tiger, Misty Knight, Colleen Wing, Bullseye, and sure, we can invite Danny Rand too, but Cherry and Angie Kim, no offense, maybe you two can be the guys in the chair. And that completes our breakdowns for Daredevil Born Again Season 1. Thank you so much for supporting New Rockstars. It's been a lot of fun for Jessica and me to accompany you on this road to Born Again. Big thanks to Gina Ippolito and Brandon Barrick for their research help on this video, and a special thanks to our members TD On a Quest, Cameron, Frederick Price, and Jeremy Dunham, who support us at the executive producer level. Comment down below with your thoughts, follow me at EA Voss, and subscribe to all the channels in the New Rockstars Network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.